Basically, we're ready now at this stage to work with this file. We can play it. We can play it. We can mix it as the music's happening. We can play it back from anywhere in the piece. So that's a simple example of recording audio. Now we can continue on with audio. We can record overdubs, and that would add a second guitar track, or we could not overdub, and we could replace sections, or we could record from bar 9 and that sort of thing. But let's move on to the next topic here, which is called rendering. And when we render something, we will convert a MIDI file to audio. Now that can include the original audio file as well. So if we wanted this particular piece to not include the melody because we've already recorded our own melody, we're going to erase this melody that's been recorded because we've got our own audio. And we want to convert the whole thing to a stereo wave file, because we'll say that we want to put it onto an audio CD. And once it's in a WAV file, programs like Adaptex's Easy Creator are happy to take this WAV file and put it on, burn it onto an audio CD for you. So we want the MIDI of this thing plus the audio that I've played. Although you don't have to have an audio track, you can just burn the whole thing with MIDI if you want. So we don't use this button, that's for recording a wave. We use this one, which is called the stereo render. Now, it's set up that it's going to record our stereo render file. By convention, we always put an underscore in Band in a Box under the name of the file. Underscore get test wave. That means that's a rendered stereo file of the whole composition. Now you can choose a different name if you want. Pressing this button here will render the WAV file. Now, what does that mean when we say render the WAV file? When we press the button, what's going to happen is the outgoing MIDI is going to get recorded. And the outgoing MIDI is going to get recorded either, as is described here, if we're using a sound card driver, like probably most people use, if you're using, say, a AW64 MIDI synth as your driver, then you will be recording the outgoing MIDI. If we're using an external module, which we are in this particular setup, then we're going to be recording our line in. So once, in a similar manner to how we did the other properties, we've got to make sure we know what we're recording here. So here we want to make sure we're recording line in, which is recording not my guitar part this time, but we've plugged a sound canvas into the line in. So it's going to record that sound canvas. Now, as it's being recorded, you're not going to hear the guitar part, the audio guitar part. That's a technical issue relating to sound cards, that they can't play and record at the same time at the highest 16-bit quality. But there's no problem there because the track is going to get merged in afterwards if we have this selected. And in fact, we can select how much, what sort of volume we want the thing merged at. So basically, let's do it. And the nice thing is we don't need to have to do, it'll render in real time. So to do the whole song would take 3 minutes if it's a 3-minute song. This particular song, 6 minutes. We've only recorded 38 seconds of audio, but we want to render it. And we can render, 15, 20 seconds of it. And so you're going to hear the MIDI as it's going. So we've pressed the rendering file now, and everything's proceeding as we expect. We don't hear that audio that I recorded on my guitar for the reasons I described. It's going to be merged in afterwards. So we can stop the rendering now, and you can see the hourglass is saying merging audio with rendered file. And now we have a file size of 3.2 megabytes. And that file is now ready to be played. Now we're going to press the test wave function to hear what our rendered wave file was. Now remember, we recorded the outgoing MIDI and then we merged in our audio track, and if necessary we would have set it to 6 decibels if we wanted it louder or something like that. Let's test it and hear what the level is like on this particular file. So that sounded like a pretty good mix, and so we don't need to adjust it and re-render it. So now that we've got a good level, I would press the re-render wave file button and let it render for the whole song, which would be 6 minutes, and basically you can go away, have a cup of coffee sort of thing, and come back, and your wave file is now rendered to stereo, and you'd be able to process it in other programs or burn it to an audio CD, that sort of thing. So that concludes the demonstration of the audio rendering functions.